A bipartisan gun reform bill has cleared a major hurdle in the Senate. It puts Congress one step closer to enacting new firearm legislation for the first time in nearly 30 years. The 80-page bill passed a key procedural vote Tuesday night. 64 senators voted yes on the measure, with 14 Republicans joining all of their Democratic colleagues. The bill still needs to pass a final vote in the chamber. It would then go on to the House, and assuming it passes there, on to President Biden for his signature. For more, I want to bring in Sean Sullivan. He's the deputy politics editor for campaigns at the Washington Post. Sean is also a CBS News political contributor. Sean, so for the first time in decades, this bill expands the category of Americans who are prohibited from owning guns. Tell us what's in this bill.
Well, John, when you look at this bill in its entirety, as you mentioned, if this does indeed pass, this would be the most sweeping changes to gun laws that we've seen in decades. And there are a few things in the bill right now that both sides of the gun debate are looking at pretty closely. One, as you alluded to, what it does is it closes, perhaps not completely, but at least in part, what people refer to as the boyfriend loophole. And what that means is, right now, if you're convicted of domestic violence against somebody who is your spouse or somebody you live with or somebody you have children with, there are federal laws that bar you from purchasing a gun. But if it's a relationship outside of those bounds, then there is no law for that. This does expand that. We also see money in this bill for mental health programs, money for school security, and money that states can use to implement what are known as red flag laws. These are laws that would prevent people who are deemed dangerous from having firearms. This is something that gun control advocates have pushed for a long time. So, it doesn't have everything that Democrats who have been pushing on this issue for a long time have called for. This is not a bill that would ban assault weapons. This is not a bill that would ban high capacity ammunition magazines. But when you hear from some of the Democrats, particularly who've been pushing on this for a long time, they say, look, this is not nothing. We can get something done. This would be a step in the right direction in their view.
The art of the possible. So 14 Republican senators sided with the Democrats to move this forward. How would you categorize those 14 Republicans?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of a mix. You have some senators who are not facing re-election, so they don't face pressures back home from a Republican base or a Republican primary. It is notable that Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, the minority leader, supported this bill, even though the majority of the Republican conference did not. Senator John Cornyn, a senator from Texas, a state where gun rights are very important, also supported this bill. He's taken some criticism for that. Lisa Murkowski is another one who's interesting. She is up for re-election this year in Alaska. So it was a mix of moderate Republicans who don't have to worry about political pressures back home. But again, I would point to McConnell, the Republican leader. It's not often that we see him break from the majority of his conference the way that he did on this bill.
Yes, very interesting. I'm going to switch topics now. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell was on the Hill. Why was he there?
Well, we heard from the commissioner, and it was interesting. There was some debate in this meeting that he was at, the House Oversight Committee, about whether he should be there in the first place. But he faced a lot of questions. We heard from him about this allegation that Daniel Snyder, who's the owner of the Washington NFL team, has faced, that he allegedly sexually assaulted and harassed a team employee in 2009. He said the league was not informed about that. And really the big news out of that today was that that committee is now going to subpoena Mr. Snyder. They've asked him to appear before the committee voluntarily. That hasn't worked. And so now they are going to compel him through subpoena to do that. And it reminds us of, the powers that, the party that controls the House of Representatives have. In fact, we saw some Republicans today say, okay, well, this is a reminder. When we control the House, we will have the power to hold investigations. You saw some Republicans saying, look, why are we having the NFL commissioner here? There's a lot more important stuff for the American people to deal with. And it's a reminder that when they take the gavel, if they take the gavel, I should say, if they win the House of Representatives in the midterm elections, we could see them hold any number of hearings on any number of subjects.
Speaking of something the Democratic majority is interested in, the January 6th committee has sent out some new subpoenas in its investigation ahead of the hearing that is tomorrow. What do we know so far?
We don't know exactly, John, who these subpoenas are aimed at, but we do know the house addresses that they were sent to. My colleagues at the Post have some reporting on this. One is Brad Carver, who has allegedly presented himself as a Trump elector. Another is Thomas Lane, who was associated with the Trump campaign. Again, we don't know exactly who these subpoenas were aimed at. We do know these were the addresses of these individuals, and these are their ties to the past election and to the Trump campaign itself. And so we'll see where it goes from here. You know, it's unclear now where this committee goes. We've seen them hold a series of very, very high-profile hearings, including some in prime time, that have generated a big audience. But I think there's some questions now about where they go next, what they want to do, what is the case that they want to present to the American people. So as we see these subpoenas being issued, they will offer some clues about what this panel is intending to do next.
And finally, some of the members of the committee are receiving Capitol Police security detail. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my colleagues have some reporting on this at the Post that all of the lawmakers on this January 6th panel are expected to receive some kind of security detail. I think this reflects the seriousness of the threats that we're seeing these members receive. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, a Republican member of this committee, went public in recent days with some of the threats that he received. So I think these are things that people are taking very, very seriously. The work of this committee has been very, very polarizing. We've seen a lot of criticism from Republicans about the validity of what this committee is doing. And I think there are worries that that criticism, that politicization could lead to violence. And the fact that we are seeing these threats, I think, is alarming to a lot of people. And that's why I think we're seeing what appears to be a move to the next level in terms of trying to secure these members as they conduct their business on the committee and try to hold these hearings, John.
All right, Sean Sullivan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks.